Hello, Jordan.
Hello there, Fleming.
The revisionist historical nutter.
Yeah, I've been
I'm
called.
saying this,
I've been
of
called
course.
worse. I've been called worse.
I'm saying this, of course, in the best positive meaning, because you are simply outstanding, amazingly enlightening to listen to read your newsletters.
I'm glad that someone thinks so.
And when you share that's when you share your findings on I would call it revisionist history.
Yeah, it is revising what we've been told, looking a bit deeper than what we think happened.
So my first question: are you for real?
I'm a real person, yeah. If that's what you were referring to.
You know what? I was I was wondering is because it was such an enormous amount of history presented to me when I first stumbled upon your Substack, and I was going, and for the record, it's called
Alternative history.
Alternative History. Let's just have a look right at your Substack here.
I've been doing it since I found Tartaria, probably about 2 years ago now. I just found it incredibly interesting. But I wanted to know more. I wanted to look past Google. I wanted to see if this was really a real place in history, then it would be documented in books, geography books, looking at it from a basic perspective, geography books. If this was a real place, the geography books of the past should have it. So I bought one, the Gazetteer from, 1758, Modern Gazetteer it was called. I bought it on eBay. And I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. I thought, I'm not going to find it. Anyway, so I opened it up. The map on the first page, open it up, there it was. Tartaria. I thought, oh my goodness. So I'm going through the book and Tartaria was in there more times than I could count. So from that very point, the love was born, the curiosity to find out what the heck is this place. And we've come a long way since then. I never thought I'd uncover some of the things I'd uncover. But it opens so many doors to so many other things, you know what I mean? It's so
It does.
interesting.
It does. It really does.
And then what started from looking at old geography books grew to like the 18th century geography books grew to going all the way back in time. I started translating texts from the 15th century, 16th century. And the older you go, the more detail there is. So when you're looking at the other way round, if there's a lot of information and then over time it's whittling down bit by bit, then it's gone now. But back then, it was prevalent. So there's something's happened, you know? That's what I'm looking at. What's happened in between that? And then you find the CIA documents from the 20th century, which then all allude further to the same thing. I started to think there's something more to this. And then modern history, we've got Mongols and Genghis Khan, and that's it. There's nothing much more than nomads and raiders across the desert living in tents. And while some of them may well have been traveling across the desert living in tents, that is putting an extremely small label on something incredibly complex, you know? And yeah, I find it incredibly interesting.
And of course, why I want to do this interview with you, or get your account on Tartary or Tartaria in current affairs viewpoint, looking at it from current affairs. That's
Current affairs, yeah.
Yeah, because when I saw in one of your posts, you start talking about that the Israelites is really from the Far East, from the Tartaria.
Yeah, the Israelite connection it's incredibly interesting. And then so we've got one reference that the reference itself is describing how this is quite a broad belief that they were the Israelites. And then when you look at it a little bit further, let's look at the slave trade. How did Jews of the time treat slaves? And then you look at how the Tartarians of the time treat slaves. Very grotesque, not very nice in treating it. Not many other civilizations through time have treated slaves in this way. So when you find two entities that now we've got an Israelite connection, when you look at these side by side, you start seeing, so there's a few similarities here that aren't extended to other ethnicities. It seems to be within these two, further adding the connection. And then, like that text notes that you referenced, circumcision before Muhammad. What other religion does circumcision? Judaism, the one and only. So there's three connections there. We've got the direct connection from what the text says, the Israelites, and then the abhorrent similarities in slave conditions and treat. And then, the circumcision, which is...
So do you know anything about Tartarians using that same circumcision tradition?
Other than what it says in that text, I've not found anything else that alludes to such thing.
But it says so in that text.
That's what it says, yeah.
Yeah.
The text, it's in... I'll put that in the Judeo-Tartarian article I wrote. So if your viewers want to see what we're referring to there, the page is on there.
Yeah.
With the translation.
We'll include it in the description when we put this post up.
Yeah, that'd be better. So
and
that'd probably be it, because it's quite a lot to take in without the written evidence in front of you.
Certainly
If
is.
someone told me that, I wouldn't know where to begin.
Exactly.
But once you see it written down and you read it a few times, you think, I've got to say.
It's mind-breaking. It really
is. I didn't expect to find that. And the book, sorry to interrupt you with this,
yeah.
But the book previous to that, it's absolutely filled to the brim with information that it's incredibly detailed and complex. The author of that book had been to Tartaria. He'd been in the courts. He's seen the system to describe what he has in such intricate detail. For then to it be made out that it's all make believe, because Tartaria didn't exist. So all the books that were alluding to it get brushed off as creative flourish or what have you. But the same people that brush these books off don't spend the time to read them. I spend the time to read them, and I'm more than happily share.
CIA apparently spent that time. CIA apparently spent that time reading this stuff as well, because when you talk about the CIA documents, these are actually real documents, and I presume that they are available somewhere.
Every book I'll share, or every page I quote, every CIA file I share, I include the link to the source. So all the CIA documents I've shared in the past week, every single one, you can have a look for yourself. I just want to understand what's going on. So when I write these pieces and I'm talking to you all, and I'm adding these links, I want you all to have a look. I'll put these links so you can do some searching. You don't have to take my word for it. Let what I've done be the beginning for you. Pick what I've got and then use that to enhance your understanding. And then once we all do that, talk to each other, share what we've learned, like we're doing now, it's not going to take very long before we start building up a picture of what the most probable reality is. And that's important because, like you said, why does this matter today? Because it's happening today. Like Palestine, in 100 years, if Israel wins, takes over, in 100 years, people are going to be discussing, was Palestine a real country? Like we're discussing, is Tartaria a real country? Because all the history's gone. Like the Crimean Tatar cultural genocide, which is documented on Wikipedia, one of the more untrustworthy sites, even has that documented on their website. Cultural genocide. It's not a genocide of just killing the people and away you go. It's cultural genocide. This is their history. This is everything that they've done, gone, and attribute it to someone else. And that, when this keeps happening time and time again, history isn't right anymore, you know? And who knows how far this has started. Tartaria might just be the most recent time.
So let's try and make it and make the case for why is CIA helping, because they are only helping covering up this story, and
Well, it seems,
and why it is so recent, because in my view, the First World War and the Second World War has so much to do with this very subject.
well, I thought that myself and I was looking for evidence, but all the CIA documents give me that evidence, you know? They lay it all out what were going on. The Germans wanting to, what's the word I'm looking for? Hire, if you will, Tartars for their army, because Russia didn't want, the Soviets didn't want the Tartars fighting on their front line because they thought they might defect. So, and this is all documented extensively, you know? And I'll share all the links to these as well, because it gets me excited, because people need to see this and read it and take a moment with it and realize what it's showing us, you know, what it's telling us.
So the Germans knew the Tartarians were
Yep.
inside the Russian or the Soviet empire, Russian
They were,
Soviet.
they knew they were within that faction, yeah. And they knew that they didn't want to be, because the Soviets were actively trying to erase them.
Yeah.
So you've got, like it puts it in the in one of the files. I don't want to say I'm quoting it word for word, but it was almost like the Germans saw the Tartars as a bit of a ticking time bomb, knowing that they're within the Soviets. So if they can get them on their side, they've got a bomb from within. You know, obviously they weren't successful for whatever reason. But then you've got other CIA files which notes the Tartars under Soviet control were manning a Panzer brigade in World War II, the Panzer Division, part of the Blitzkrieg.
Okay.
So it's there's so much to it.
And then we've got the which is also very interesting in terms of current affairs, the Balfour
The Balfour
Agreement
Declaration.
declaration. Yes, in 1917.
And don't forget
Based,
the Sykes-Picot map that came before the
Mhm.
Balfour Declaration, because if there was no map with no drawn divided territories, there was no Balfour Declaration. So it didn't start with the declaration. It started way before that. That's what people need to realise. The British had already taken the land, preparing the stage for new Israel all them years ago.
So if the real Israelites were in these Tartarian areas and someone tried to erase them from the map and someone tried to
Take their identity.
take their identity and move it
They
to
need somewhere to put it,
somewhere.
somewhere biblical, so it's believable. What better place?
And the Balfour Agreement or the Balfour Declaration actually designated that area.
Designated Israel. This is now Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're only going,
And now look where we are now.
we're less than 100 years back in time. Now it's so close to us, relatively close to us.
Yeah, it's not a long time ago. Really. It really is. I found it quite unbelievable at first how recent, well, recent, I mean like 1960s, 50s, that these classified documents involving Tartars go. You know, 1960s, that's a livable memory for some people. You know, not a long time ago.
The Beatles.
The Beatles. Yeah, so I keep digging. And don't forget, we've got the maps. So for hundreds of years, cartographers drew the wrong name on a map. And then, I mean, that on its own, you could brush off. But then that next to the thousands of historical books, not just on geography, but we've got history books. I've got a book in my collection called The Annual Register for 1782. It's a book on the politics of the world in 1782. It's a book on politics. And in that, it describes the Crimean Tartars on how they were. I've shared this in an article as well, I believe it's called Does This Prove Tartaria Exists? But in that, it says there's a reference that the Sham of Crimea at the time said he wanted to restore the Tartars to the position of their illustrious ancestors. Now, what does that mean? The position of their illustrious ancestors. You know, they've obviously classing themselves as such a beautiful, diverse history, divine history, illustrious ancestors. And then you look in these gazetteers, it doesn't just tell you place names, it gives you a little description of the place as well. I remember one quote I found, Alta County, and it's noted to be the burial ground of the Grand Tartarian emperors. This book was 1707. I also mentioned this in one of my articles. Same one, I think. Does This Prove Tartaria Good? And that, a burial ground for the emperors of Tartaria. What does that imply? Emperors of what? If Tartaria was just Mongols, then what were these Tartarian emperors of? Because that's another point people say, that Tartars were just Mongols. But the historical record distinctly describes them as two different entities. Another extract. I'm just chucking out extracts here. But another one is Mongols have the same origin as Tartars. Now, if they were the same, that just simply wouldn't exist. Because they were the same. They won't come from the same place because they're the same people. Because they're the same people. It will say Mongols are Tartars, but it says Mongols have the same origin as Tartars. Whatever that origin may be, I don't know. But I try and focus on the points that the modern narrative is insistent on. That Tartars were just a subset of Mongols. So that one's not true. And then another one that they are just Turkic people. But again, in one of my articles, I go over all the modern narrative points and provide, I'm not just saying it's not true, I provide many historical proofs, historical evidences, should I say, for each point. Because a lot of it is just easily disprovable with a bit of searching. Archive.org is a fantastic website. It's free. Such a wide range, millions of books. What I do, go on it. For example, in this scenario, type in Tartaria, go to the oldest publications first. You can change the settings to the oldest published book come first, and then it'll ascend in order. And they're all in different languages, so you'll have to. It takes a while. You know, it's not a quick process. But then you take the pages, and then again, this is why it does take a while, because not every single book you get is going to have interesting information. So you've got to persevere sometimes. Or in my case, I'm going to have to put it down to providence. It seems the first book I pick every time I look seems to be full of evidence. I must have a lucky eye for it. But anyway, so then I just translate the pages, and more often than not, you're going to find incredible information that completely contradicts the modern narrative. Incredible detailed information about the laws, governance, hierarchy, military structures, military formations, the names of the military brigades. This is information that you'd only know if you'd been to this place. And it's documented very heavily throughout documented history. In Western books, people say to me, well, how come there's no Tartarian books? And it's a good question. But we've got to then look back to the CIA document, which notes specifically the rewriting of Tartaria and Tartarian history. So if, say, a Tartarian language was, this is just for argument's sake, say it was Arabic. If they change what people think that language is to Arabic, for example, and everyone thinks it's Arabic, but it might not be Arabic. You know what I'm saying? Just because we're told it is this language, I might be miles away with this, but it's the rewriting of history is more than just getting rid of their books. It's changing what they've done in history. Like Genghis Khan mentions that he was the founder of Tartaria in the 1200s, and that the Tartars conquered the Roman Empire. Now that is a significant part of history,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So if you remove the opposing force to the Romans, that's a major part of history gone, attributed to nomads and what have you. And
Yeah.
it's just not. It's not true. You know, we deserve to know what happens in history and what the reality of the world is. The reality of the world might be it resets every 300 years and it's a big disaster. And as scary as that may be for some people to understand, if that's the way it is, then we deserve to know that that's the way it is.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
do.
we're all in this together. We're all humans. Whatever the truth may be, as painful as it may be,
Yeah.
it is what it is. We're here to learn, and I love spending every day doing just that.
So if we talked about the Nazis before, and they sort of are known for introducing the concentration camps,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
in reality,
I've actually
we've
been
got,
to Auschwitz.
yeah,
Yeah.
in reality we've got on the Russian side a maybe even larger tragedy than what happened in the concentration camps.
Oh, very well, very much so.
And the Gulag camps might be initiated, but by
Yeah.
what was done in
The
Nazi Germany.
infrastructure was already there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, funny you mentioned that because in another CIA document I've shared, it notes that a Tartar was late. This is in the Soviet Union behind the Iron Curtain. A Tartar were late to work 23 minutes. Oh, no, it was 7 minutes. He was late to work and he got imprisoned in a work camp for 23 years. This is noted in a CIA file. It sounds unbelievable. Now I'll tell you, 7 minutes late to work, 23 years in prison. But that is what rewriting and falsifying Tartar history looks like. If you put everyone that knows Tartar history in a place where away from the public eye, especially at that point in history, everyone will looking at other things, quietly move them away while no one's looking, while everyone's looking the other way. And then when the world opens up and war has ceased, they're gone. They're forgotten. So I think the wars serve many purposes.
So someone sitting and watching this might think, why is it that the Russians, the Soviets, were killing off these Tatars inside of their vast empire? And why is it that they are actually being helped to hush down such a tragedy
It's a great question.
by the CIA even?
It's a great question. You've got to look at like why. So the first place to start is there must have been an opposing force on a major scale, especially when you look at the proof in history throughout documented history how large the empire was. But then once you look at the laws, how's the place governed? What laws do they adhere to? What is the structure of Tartaria? Let us see if we can understand why they might want to erase such a place. So I'm going to be quoting a lot of my work here. I haven't got it to hand. So if anyone wants to know what I'm talking about, you have to read some of my work. And then the pieces are all click in. But I've wrote an article called The Real Reason for Erasing Tartaria. So I'll go over pretty much what I'm about to say now, albeit in much more detail. But this was a place with strict rules. Let's start with that already. And the punishment for a lot of things was death. So while it may seem to some people that this place was utopian heaven, it came at a cost, you know. There was no theft because theft was punishable by death. There were no poverty, no one stole. There were no adultery. If anyone got caught cheating, death. It's a Muslim country, we've got to bear in mind, so they're very strict on laws of such. You couldn't walk around a town or a city with a weapon. It would immediately been confiscated. But these people and the court system, seems to be all very fair. You know, if you're the mayor of a town, the sham of a town, you're not higher than anyone else. You get treated the same in a court of law. As we know, that isn't the same way our world works. If you're in charge, you get away with it. If you're normal people like me and you face the full wrath of the law. Whereas in Tartaria, as what's documented seems to suggest, or puts very bluntly, everyone faced the same punishment or treatment, sorry. What else have we got? So, yeah, sorry, there's that much. It's hard to pull bits out of the ether like that. But yeah, there were no taxes. You know, it's documented that the shams of towns, which were like what we will call mayors, or you call them mayors, that reside over the town, they didn't take tax from the land. So they weren't taking money from people. Nothing was taxed. But people didn't live in abundance. It's noted quite rigorously throughout the record that no one overindulged, because overindulgence, as mentioned previously, like many of the other things, were punishable by death. And if you went out as a raiding party, you came back with your treasures, everything you'd stolen or conquered, whatever. If you got caught hiding a little bit extra, it's because what they do is share the bounty out. If you got caught taking a little bit extra for yourself, death. So what this resulted in is a community of people that highly trusted each other. They were complex. So when the West came over and they wanted to impose boundaries and taxes and start to commercialize, they couldn't convert these people to that, because how can you convince a population of materialism and what's the word I'm looking for? A stable living foundation, because these people roamed round. You know, don't get me wrong, they had the city centres and the hubs of trade and commercial aspects, but for the most part, most Tartars, as documented, roamed around, moving with the seasons, with the flocks, grazing, you know, constantly travelling. They didn't have anything you could tax. They had nothing you could take. There was no land that you could take away from them or blackmail them with, you know? There was no way to take these people from the inside. You couldn't corrupt them. You had to destroy them. But look at that, say, in the West, the world we live in now, and the way it's set up, it's a materialist world. We all work for money. And that's the way it is. We pay taxes, and our taxes feed the chains higher up, and it's perpetuated forever, and things will never change, it feels like. But they lived in accordance with the land. They didn't believe in materialism. They rejected materialism. Overindulgence was punished by death. So when this such a sophisticated and complex unity of people over all of Asia weren't prepared to change their lifestyle for the up and coming West, there's one thing was only going to happen: war. And then when we start to look at the period of erasal, when things start, I'd say, politically getting involved on that aspect, we see notions of, I think one of the shams in charge of, I forget what the place was called, one of the, Bukhana, I think it was called, one of the Asian, one of the Middle Eastern,
Kublai Khan.
no, it's a place, Samarkand, sorry. That's the location there. So the Sham of Samarkand, in one of the documents, it's noted that the Turks had kidnapped his son. So and he were paying gold in order for him to keep him alive. So they were blackmailing him. So this was the first level of infiltration. They had a sham son, and the sham was already paying them gold for him to keep him. Again, it sounds like I'm just telling stories here, but all these points are referenced in the articles I've written with sources and links, so you can read these books for yourself. But yeah, so that seems to be through illicit means, trickery for the most part, because they wouldn't be easily persuaded.
They weren't corruptible, so they were very hard to conquer, because that's what is in
Well,
reality has happened throughout history. That
how do you conquer a movement of people that are constantly moving? It's a logistical nightmare. Don't get me wrong, you've got the trade centres, but these centres in the very heart of the Middle East. It's not like it's on the shoreline. You can send a load of frigates over and attack it directly. You've got to enter land that they're probably some of these people have never been to before. And from Britain to the Middle East, or from the like Western European countries, going over to the Middle East is a massive environmental change. The heat, the atmosphere, the humidity. It is dangerous. It's a dangerous place to live. So they couldn't just attack the main trade cities to start with, because they had to travel such way in first. Whilst you've got the Tartars that are living, roaming round, it would have been impenetrable to try and get in. It had to be done politically, writing of contracts at borders. There's another book that mentions the politics book I mentioned, Annual Register, 1782. It mentions that one of the areas in Crimea had been ravaged that bad by war. The Tartars who still had homes were giving them away for very little money, just so they could escape to Europe, because they wanted to leave the war-torn place they lived away. And it notes in the book that you could buy these houses for very little money, and people did. And then that's it. They've got the land there, you know. It's not just wars and destruction. It's very clever, you know. And then it's hard. It's hard thing because you've got there must have been thousands of people working on this, you know, to create, to be able to pull off something of this magnitude. It really is hard to believe. I never believed it at first. I started looking into Tartaria. When I first heard about it, I thought, no, wait, how can there be an empire across the known world at the time? A lot of people say the whole world. The whole world at the time didn't include America in the earlier years, because as we're told, America was unknown. Whether it was, that's a debate for another day. But
Yes.
yeah, so across the whole known world, which were Britain, Europe, Asia, North, South Pole, known across all this area. I've got references to put them in all these. I've even got, believe it or not, a few references that put the Tartars in North America, sorry. I haven't got much. I haven't got anything to base, have a concrete position on it, but I've got a few quotes that reference indirectly the Tartars being in North America as well. But it's mentioned in a couple of the geography books that there used to be a strait connecting the continents. Yeah. So
It wouldn't be that difficult for them to travel east and end up
not for a civilization of people that live traveling. So yeah. But so I started this not knowing what to expect, and like I said before, every book just adds more fire to it, more fuel to the fire.
I must say I avoided going into the subject of Tartaria, and I've done so for a couple of years because I was just, you go to YouTube and you see all these,
Fantastical,
pictures of fantastic
nonsense.
buildings
Yeah,
and all that, and I was going like, no, that can't be, no, no, that's
they're the ones I saw that piqued my interest. I thought because it piqued my interest with the buildings, because I do think about that a bit. There is buildings in the town I live in now. There's buildings, beautiful stone structures. I'll send you some pictures after. Beautiful stone structures look like they belong in Rome. Corinthian pillars, the works. There's no cement between the blocks. They're precision cut blocks. Like I said, they look like they belong in Rome. Incredible structures. And then you look into the history of these structures. It took 1 year to build in 1830, while the roads were still made out of mud and we had horse and carriage. That is not, it's not accurate or believable in any way. So what are you hiding? Now, I'm not putting this on the Tartarians because I only work from what the evidence suggests. And I've got no proof or evidence to suggest that they were capable of building. I've got no proof that they were in Britain, for starters, but then I've got no evidence that they were building structures like this. Quite the contrary. We know we've got the trade centres, but for the most part, most of them were roaming around. It's not to say there wouldn't have been constructions, but there's not much evidence of that. Whether, yeah, I don't know why. Perhaps it's because they didn't, but there is something funny going on with the buildings.
What's your best guess? I mean, how do these intricate buildings appear without, no one
All
has a
over the world,
grandfather
yeah.
or great great grandfather saying, oh, I built that very big, and we worked on that for years, and that was just fantastic. And we don't have recollections,
No.
public recollections like that.
And why? Why, oh, why, oh, why did none of them have toilets in them?
What?
They don't, a lot of them don't have any toilets in them. No, I'm not speculating that people didn't go to the toilet, but it's just strange that all these old buildings, old world buildings, we'll call them for argument's sake, do your research. You'll be quite surprised at how little these massive, beautiful, ornate structures have without bathrooms or kitchens originally. Like all the plumbing was added in for the bathrooms. So whether whatever civilization built them had specific toilet buildings, maybe. But I don't know. There's so much to history that we've been misled about.
We spoke a bit about the Romans. So the Tartarians might have been the ones conquering the Eastern Roman Empire, and if that's the case, who then conquered the Tartarians or the Tartars?
Yeah, I think it was slow erasal, really. But who? The powers. It's hard to give a specific one person name. I think it was probably a unity of peoples. But again, I can only speculate because there's no paper trail. But of course, there won't be a paper trail. We've got the CIA documents. Now, why would they talk about rewriting Tartar history if they have nothing to do with getting rid of them? Let's look at what we have got. We've got Soviet documents discussing indoctrination of Tartar camps. These are in the files as well. So we've got the Soviets admitting to indoctrinating the Tartars and changing the libraries of their books. We've got the CIA in a few of their declassified documents stating that they want to complete a full rewriting of Tartar history, the history of Tartaria, written explicitly. Have you seen the document I'm referring to?
I have. It's on your. It's on your
It
Substack.
doesn't leave much room for interpretation, does it?
No.
So
So
So,
we got two. I mean, I'm just posing one thing here, and the yeah, I'll just make a short fly into it. When they built Rome,
mm,
they sort of stopped building at around 100 when they, for instance, when they built the Pantheon in Rome.
yeah,
700 years later, they built in Germany the Charlemagne
yeah.
built his palace in Aachen in Germany, and it's built exactly with the same mortar, with the same building materials
Yeah.
as 300, 400, maybe 700 years earlier. There's such a big gap. You don't have artisans. You don't have the craftsmen who can do this. So many years. Yes.
It's more than skilled individuals. This requires schools, technical colleges. This is master level skill at the very tip, at the pinnacle of skill. I mean, you've seen these buildings. I've seen these buildings. I'm sure the viewers have seen these buildings. Some of these carvings, they're beyond comprehension. Just how beautifully accurate they all are. This isn't something you can pick up in a few months. At, you know, having a go yourself. This is serious level skill that can only be gained by experience and time served. So, like you say, there's got to have been somewhere training all these artisans. But when you had that big period of time missing, is that really how far we're between?
So did the Romans, Western Rome, moves to Germany because that's what it did. It did. Charlemagne was the
Yeah.
beginning of the Holy Roman German Empire.
Mm.
Not many people know that, but that's a 1,000-year period where we got the Holy Roman German Empire until 1800 something. So the Romans moved to Germany, or a branch of them. They moved to Amsterdam. They moved to London.
All over.
They moved to Washington.
Well,
They,
I was just about, sorry to interrupt. I
yep.
just wanted to add this in because you mentioned the Parthenon. There's a Parthenon in Nashville, 1-to-1 scale, exactly the same in America, in Nashville. One to
Yeah.
one scale, made of the same materials. Who built it? They say that it's a replica they built, but the materials the same, the stone's the same. You can't replicate it and it be identical. You know, you
Mm,
can't
mm,
replicate the skill of
mm.
someone whomever built these things 700 years ago.
How on earth did they do
Because
this?
they put so many modern dates on things in like the 1800s. Everything was built in the 1800s. All of
Mm.
America seems to have been constructed within the 1800s.
Just like that.
Started from nothing, and it turned into a stone metropolis in 100 years. How is that believable? Where did all these people come from? Why did they build cities so big for a continent that had only just been discovered?
Mm.
You know, it don't make sense. It
No, it
seems more logical. I don't put this out there because a lot of people might not agree, but perhaps these buildings were already in America, and then Columbus or whoever actually truly discovered America, because we've got to realize, for the most part, we only know what we've been told, really, unless you look into it and look for the books of the age and try and. It's like if I want to learn about an event in the 1500s, for example, I'm not going to Google it. I'm going to try and find a book written in the 1500s about that subject. Because the best chance we've got about learning the truth of any situation is to try and read what was written as close to it as possible. You know, they're only describing what they can see at the time. That's the angle I take with Tartaria as well.
So did the Romans get the Tartars back, and did the Romans through the Western civilization, which we know through the Bolsheviks took power in Russia, and then they came
Putting
back
it
very
together.
strong and very hard.
Wow. I never even thought that. It just makes too much sense, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
they'd already conquered them. As documented extensively in historical record, the Tartars conquered the Roman Empire. Yeah, oh my days. I tell you what, Fleming, 2 years ago, I did not expect it would lead me to where I am right now. I really didn't. And in a way, I kind of wish it didn't. Because if it means, if what we're discussing is true, it means a lot of people, innocent people, have died. Everyone's been lied to, and we don't really have a clue what's going on.
Not a clue. Most people, not a clue, and not interested.
I know, but it's some people just aren't interested. I mean, I find all this very interesting. I mean, don't you want to know
Yeah.
what we are? What are we doing here? You know, the only way to find out the answer to these deep, lifelong questions is to trace back known history. Trace back as far as we can. See, I want to know where we come from.
Yeah.
I believe in the Creator. That's the only thing I believe with our show of a doubt, in the Creator. I don't. There's no religious dogma attached. I just believe God's in the mind. My personal belief.
I've written 4 books. The most important of the 4 books I've written that actually starts by saying, if you are in the middle of the prayer in the wasteland America, in the middle, and you are at a railroad track, like say Western America back in those days,
Yeah.
and you got this railroad track going from one horizon to the other horizon. If you don't know whether you came from the right or from the left or from north or from south, how do you know where you're going?
Yeah. That's it.
How do you
That's
know
exactly it. You're
where to
wandering
go
around
from
in
there?
circles with no purpose at all. No purpose at all.
And I think that's where we are today. If we don't know our history, if we don't know where we're coming from, if we don't know why it turned out like it is
Yeah.
today, the craziness we're seeing around us.
And if we learn about what happened, then just maybe we can stop, or not even stop, just try and stop it happening again. Not for us, not for me or you, but for the children in the next 50 years. This world's for more than just us. Like, I do all these writings, and I'm not just motivated by my own desire for the truth. I want everyone should know.
Yeah,
We should all know. But if we all understand that this happens again and again and again through history, a power rises up. It's not like they get erased and then the gears keep moving. History gets erased, things get rewritten, things get moved around, and now are we? Is it the year 2000? Is it the year 10,000? Is it the year 500? We don't know. Who knows truly? No one knows because there's so much confusion.
we've been told to hate Russians. Earlier, we were told to hate Germans. Earlier, we were told to hate. We're also being told a lot these days to hate Muslims. These stories that we're being told, they are only able to tell us these stories and make us hate each other because they are controlling the programming of the mind. They are controlling what we're thinking. They're controlling what we're thinking about ourselves,
Mm.
and it's not true.
In Britain, and I see this, it's a terribly racist country, Britain. In certain areas, not all of it. This is a bit broad of me to say that, I apologise. Areas of Britain are just terribly racist because the problem is the media are only showing Muslim crime on the news. So people are just being relentlessly shown Muslim crime. And it doesn't matter if you're white, black, brown, or yellow, or green. You can be prone to violence as much as anyone else. It's not reserved to a skin color. It's reserved to humans in general. Doesn't matter what color you are. But when this is perpetuated, Muslim, Muslim, black, brown, it starts giving an image in people's minds subconsciously. They don't realize it because they're seeing it every day, and they're automatically becoming conscious of the colored man. And it's all for the bigger picture, because look at what's going on all over Europe in the Western world. Immigration's through the roof. Why? Don't blame the immigrants, because you've got to put yourself in their shoes. If they're from a war-torn country in the Middle East, more likely from what a Western country has done to them. And
Exactly.
then some British government official, whatever, goes over and says, look, if you make your way over to Britain, we'll give you all these luxuries.
Mm.
And you're going to have a much better life. Of course you'd come over. If they're living in squalor in a war zone and they're being promised the world, essentially, compared to what they've got, of course they're going to go. I'd go.
Mm.
I'd make the journey. I'd get in one of the boats and risk, because I want a better life for myself.
Mm.
You know? But the numbers are relentless. And it's a tricky subject, because I'm not racist. I don't care what colour you are. But there's certain cultural differences where Western countries just don't fit with Eastern countries. Now, that's not a racist thing to say. It's just the way it is. If I moved to the Middle East, I'd have to change the way I behave, to suit their way of life. And that's fine. But that
I did
doesn't...
so. I lived 3 years in the Middle East, so I tried it. It's you adapt or you're not welcome.
Exactly. But that doesn't happen in Britain. But the problem is, people are so focused on the immigrants, and they're going on the protests, and they're writing about the immigrants. The problem is who is allowing it to happen,
Exactly.
because the numbers have been increasing. Who is letting the numbers increase? The people aren't the issue. It's who is controlling.
That's right.
If they wanted to stop it, they could stop it like that. But it's perpetuated continuously. And I think this is my theory. I'd like to see what you think. Well, tensions are rising. There've already been riots in Britain now, in the Southport, for them poor little girls that got stabbed by an immigrant again. Well, no, he weren't an immigrant, sorry, I take that, I apologise. A lot of people thought he was an immigrant because they were black. Again, indoctrination. Just because someone's coloured doesn't mean they're not from here. Anyway, got on another tangent. But eventually, all this Muslim crimes perpetuate, all this black crimes perpetuated. And a lot of the time, as disgraceful as it is, they always seem to involve attacks on children. And I mean, it elicits an emotional response in people. Of course it will. These are defenseless children. But it's all building up to a point. Tensions are rising, fuel costs are rising, everyone's angry, everyone's not got any money because everything's so expensive and everyone's taxed through the roof. It's going to get to a breaking point. And when it does get to breaking point, they haven't forgot about digital ID that they announced last year. They're going to bring it back, because whilst there's riots exploding up and down the country, there's only one way to get security back and safety, and that's for digital ID. We need to know who everyone is. There's riots, because they will be kicking off across the country. I mean, it's already starting. There's a lot of tensions growing. It's a shame.
We'll see
What they want.
ICE police dispatched in the UK as well, just like in America, and get people from another area, police people from another country or from another area to police the streets, so they are not biased towards the locals, and they just do what they have to do. And in Denmark, just like in many European Union countries, we'll probably see something like that with a international kind of police force, because it is easier to get a Polish national to point a gun toward a local Dane than it is to get the local policeman to
Yeah.
point the gun against his neighbor.
It's all terrible. I think it's absolutely terrible.
But anyway, we're going into off a tangent here. But I think you say it perfectly in one of your recent posts. We said we all bleed the same color blood. I mean, we are the same basically.
We're just the same. We're all here trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's
yeah.
try and figure it out together instead of
Exactly,
killing each other. You
exactly.
know what I mean? Why are we killing each other? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I used to when I was a young boy, I wanted to go in the army. I thought defending my country. What more could I do? And now I've gotten older, I look at it and think that isn't defending my country at all. That is invading someone else's country on behalf of people I'll never meet. The people that don't care about me. I'm just a number. You get paid minimum wage to go and be cannon fodder. That's not being a patriot. Being a patriot is standing up for what's right. You know, do the right thing. And that's what I'm trying to do, Fleming.
And
Trying to inspire the world.
you're doing a great job of it as a self-made historian. And I think
Close to my heart. It's a close subject to me.
I think
I
we'll
used to
see
be an ex-addict, Fleming.
a next addict.
Yeah, in my teenage years. And since I found this, it's just given me a purpose, you know.
Yeah,
It's not just Tartaria, it's the bigger picture of life. I love life in general, you know. Every morning I wake up happy because I'm here
yeah,
again, another day to
yeah,
do whatever I please. Not exactly, I've got to go to work. There's things I have to do, not
yeah.
things I want to do. But I'm here, you know. I can think whatever I want to think. I can do whatever I want. Just because I'm stuck in a little place called Britain, I can't really travel the world as much as I want to. I trust that if that is what God wants me to do one day, then that path will open itself up to me. But right now, I'm more than content with what I'm doing. God is my witness. I will never stop doing this.
Keep going that way, Jordan. And I can't wait to see more of your Substacks, more of your newsletters, more of all the things that you are digging up. There's a historian I also follow in. He lives in. He's actually Australian. He lives in Italy. It's called Phoenician Hunt. I think he's doing a great job as well. He's concentrating on another time period than you are. We've got Miss Heritage History in, I think, in Idaho in the U.S. Also revisionist historians. It's to me it's a wealth of a world to dive into. This
This
actually
is,
we
yeah,
really want to know the real truth about history, just
this
like
is
as
the
you
real
say.
wealth. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
this is more valuable than any amount of money could possibly be. This is why it's hidden. And that is perhaps that's what the purpose of life is. To try and find out what the hell's going on.
We definitely didn't empty the subject here. If people are interested, I
Oh,
will,
there's far more.
and I
There's far
will
more
put
to it.
links on the description for this. Go to your Substack, alternative history. Uh, go through all the in very detailed evidence for this, and make up your own mind what's
Yeah.
actually going on. What is our real history? Because I think you put so much effort into this when you post it. I can feel the. I mean, you're so good at sharing your approach to your articles, and it's just like I let myself away and listen to your words in these newsletters. Keep on going, John, and thank you so much.
You're gonna make me shed a tear if you carry on. That's very kind of you to say, Fleming. I'll remember that. Thank you.
Anyway, this definitely won't be the last time we'll chat on a related subject. Thank you so much for your time, Jordan Nuttall.
You're more than welcome. It's been a pleasure.